In 1976, the Sarraco took shape in European racing, in a schedule of packed grids and technical solutions that emerged after the oil crisis. With exemplary organization, meticulous preparation, and consistency in the Continental Championships, the team captured the attention of the stands and established itself through the methodical pursuit of performance on the track. In the 1970s, mass television and pop culture multiplied female icons. In that setting, Linda Carter rose to prominence. She started in fashion, on covers and runways, and soon moved into entertainment. The combination of presence and performance made her an emblem of that period. In the 1970s, the wall-mounted rotary phone became a symbol of the expansion of lines and the urban pace. Made of sturdy plastic and using pulse dialing, it usually sat in kitchens or hallways. Messages were left there. Long-distance calls were made and schedules were organized, making it a routine presence in homes, offices, and shops. In the 1980s, Colleen Camp established herself in film and TV. In a landscape driven by blockbusters and the arrival of cable TV and VHS. Versatile, she alternated between comedies and thrillers and became a familiar face to the public. In Clue, 1985, her presence sums up that period. Fast pace, quick consumption, and pop culture expanding across the world. From 1887 to 1889, at the construction site of the Eiffel Tower erected for the Universal Exposition, an elevator was installed on the first level. The novelty, a hallmark of industrialization, sped the comings and goings of workers and materials, reduced the ascent time, and sustained the pace of assembling the iron pieces joined by rivets, keeping the schedule on track. In the late 1970s, the New York subway mirrored the 1975 fiscal crisis. Investments cut, maintenance in decline, and cars covered in graffiti. With crime on the rise and constant breakdowns, it became a stage for robberies and fare evasion. Amid scant policing and routine delays, fear gained ground and shaped the daily ride. A boy faces the tube TV and turns on the Atari. At the click of the button, the joystick opens a new scene. Games leave the arcade and take over the living room. Cartridges swapped on the couch become a habit. Straightforward graphics are enough to bring the family together. It was the beginning of electronic leisure routines, in sync with the arrival of personal computing in homes. In 1906, in Volendam, on the shores of the then Zuiderzee, dog-drawn carts cut through the streets carrying fish, bread, and small loads. The practice, common in the Netherlands and Belgium, set the village's rhythm. Years later, with dikes and public works, the inland sea changed its face and the maritime economy reorganized, leaving that scene as a living memory of what came before. August 1986, the corner of Broadway and W49th. Young and old gather around improvised boards while Times Square changes its face. Stalls vie for space with the growing police presence. Chess, reborn in the Cold War years, takes over sidewalks and squares and turns the street into a silent arena. There, each move draws onlookers. 1990s. On the shore of Lake Michigan, Chris Farley appears beside his father, a scene that pulls the thread of Midwestern roots. While the photo captures rest outside the frame, the career accelerates. SNL, films, packed theaters, a symbol of post-Cold War comedy. He feels the clash between the calm of the water and the pressure that grows with each premiere. In the 1970s, Marilu Henner left the stage for US TV and film, when sitcoms were expanding and actresses were gaining new space. After comedic and dramatic work, she rose to prominence in 1978 with Taxi. The series captured the decade's cultural turn by bringing humor closer to urban everyday life and turning small stories into portraits of a real city. Late 1890s. A Maori woman poses with her child while the world around her changes with British colonization. On her face, the tia moko tells her lineage and mana, reaffirms the bond with the IWI and the family's history. Between mother and child, the shared gesture suggests teaching, living memory, and the continuity of Wakapapa. Thus, the portrait becomes a bridge between past and future. In 1909, a portrait records Wanada Parker, Comanche and daughter of Quanah Parker. The photo appears after the end of the Comanche Wars and the imposition of reservations, a period when leaders like Quanah sought to negotiate paths of adaptation. The image captures a generation that straddles the line between ancestral heritage and the demands of the federal government. In 1954, Felix de Weldon was modeling in plaster the United States Marine Corps War Memorial. He worked from Joe Rosenthal's celebrated photo, which captured the raising of the flag on Iwo Jima in 1945. Adjusting proportions and gestures, he sought to convert that image into a lasting sculpture, preserving the memory of the battle and the Marines' role in the Pacific. In the photo, Sophia Loren and Claudia Cardinale symbolize the post-war rebirth of Italian cinema. Between neorealism and the brilliance of Cinecittà, their trajectories follow the economic boom and the country's projection. Under the hand of De Sica, Visconti, and Fellini, their films cross borders in co-productions and reach Hollywood, opening doors for new stars. In 1983, a van roamed Toronto offering a portable telephone. Adapted as a mini switchboard, it parked and moved on, allowing anyone to make calls on the move. The scene symbolizes the transition, from the wires of fixed networks to the first mobile services, a lab on wheels that preceded the era of cell phones. In the 1960s, in the midst of the Cold War, the Japanese-American architect Minoru Yamasaki appears beside the model of the future Twin Towers. The scene records the design phase of the World Trade Center, commissioned by the Port Authority, when New York was experiencing modernism and urban renewal. The complex, a symbol of the United States' financial power, would open its doors in 1973. Between 1900 and 1910, in Cuban cigar factories, a paid lector gave voice to novels, newspapers, and serials, while the workers rolled tobacco. Born in the 19th century and often funded by the workers themselves, this custom set the tempo of the work, broadened political and cultural repertoires, and sparked discussions on the factory floor. In 1955, Marilyn Monroe was at her peak in the studio system and was becoming a post-war consumer icon. Campaigns and films polished her persona. Elegant dresses and striking necklines set the decade's aesthetic. Meanwhile, she sought to broaden her control over roles and choices. The ambition was to break molds and decide the course of her career. United States, 1930s. Amid the Great Depression, a laundry pulses as a point of livelihood. Amid the steam, a worker smiles as she slides the electric iron, a sign of household electrification. Among piles of clothes, her rhythm organizes the day and sustains income, revealing how women supported families in uncertain times. In the 1960s, flying first class was the emblem of the jet age. With fares still regulated and fierce competition, the airlines expanded cabins, served meals at the table, and trained crews for constant care. The strategy sought to win the loyalty of executives and diplomats and, as a bonus, display in the air the prestige each country wanted to assert. In 1870, in the Algerian oasis of Biskra, already under French rule, a woman poses for the camera in a garment called Moorish. The clothing, common to Arabs and Islamized Berbers, expressed belonging and norms of modesty. As the empire expanded and ethnographic photography gained strength, this way of dressing preserved practices prior to the 19th century, echoing local memories. In 1927, a chauffeur drove the Bugatti Type 41 Royale Coupe Napoleon, a rare piece of the interwar period. Ettore Bugatti conceived it for kings. Long wheelbase, 12.7L engine, comfort and quiet to serve the family that owned the car. Produced in very few units, the Royales mirrored post-World War I Europe, eager to reassert status. In 1891, in Porfirian, Mexico, a train crosses Tunnel 8 in the Temiscopa Canyon. Hewn through the mountain range, the cut integrates the rail network which, by linking mining areas to ports, brought in foreign capital and changed the circulation of goods in the north. The tunnel, more than a passage, marks a bet on technique and the domestication of the topography. In 1960s, London, Carnaby Street and King's Road became showcases of swinging London. Youth consumption was growing, pop music set the pace, and fashion raced ahead. Amid mod cuts, miniskirts, and slim suits, people of all ages took to the streets, breaking with Victorian legacies and ushering in a confident urban aesthetic there. In the 1940s, at the height of Hollywood's golden age and wartime entertainment, Donna Drake made room for herself as an actress and singer in the studio system. In comedies and musicals that offered an escape from everyday life, she established herself in widely seen titles and took her voice to the stage, radio, and tours, expanding her audience and her own trajectory. In the 1920s, a wedding portrait of a Khalkha couple captures a time of change, from the Qing collapse in 1911 to the emergence of the Mongolian People's Republic in 1924. The deal and ornaments reveal status and ancestry, echoing pastoral nomadism. Marriage, more than a rite, seals pacts between families and sustains support networks. In 1982, the Seiko TV watch became an icon of Japanese electronic miniaturization. A watch and analog TV receiver, it depended on a tuner module and displayed images on a tiny screen. At the peak of portables, it predated video-capable cell phones and paved the way for wearable technologies by uniting timekeeping and media consumption right on the wrist. In 1952, Walter Corron captured Brigitte Bardot dancing on a terrace. Paris spread out in the background. The scene appears in a France emerging from the war, as mass culture and the star system advanced. These photos helped cement Bardot as a new face of the country's cinema, and at the same time recorded the modernization of urban habits in big cities. Around 2000 BCE in Egypt, an apprentice scribe practices writing on a clay tablet, while the master, with red ink, marks the mistakes. This classroom routine trained personnel capable of recording taxes, managing inventories, and noting offerings, sustaining the state and temples. Mastery of hieratic writing took hold to serve administration. The Cold War sets the tone and the educational system expands. In an art classroom, students lean their bodies over the paper, guided by the radio's hiss. Now jazz, now the emerging rock. The rhythm sets the gesture, and the experience blends sound and line, a sign of a school that tests new paths and turns class into a creative laboratory. In the 1930s and 1940s, the American burlesque dancer Zorita gained fame with the half-and-half routine. On stage, she entered in a divided costume. One side covered her from head to toe, the other left skin exposed. The proposal, bold for the time, played on contrast and kept the audience hooked from beginning to end. It was an act that toyed with curiosity and modesty. In 1970, at the Swan Hunter shipyards in Wallsend, the SO Hibernia was built. Designed to cross oceans, it was 330 meters long with a beam of 53 meters, dimensions that placed it among the giants of oil transport. Its size symbolized the United Kingdom's industrial ambition in that period and marked an era of ever larger oil tankers. The 17th century Emerald Cup holds a place of prominence in Indian court jewelry. Carved from a single 252-carat gem, it was transformed into a ceremonial vessel and over time acquired precious details, gold fillets, diamond settings, and a meticulous finish that reinforce its historical value and the fascination it still inspires. In the 1950s, a family walks into the dealership with eyes shining. The sedan gleams in the showroom and, with the turn of the key, seems to open a path to a promising future. More than transportation, the new car translated upward mobility. Neighbors watched, children cheered, and the parents, parking at their front door, felt the silent confirmation of effort rewarded. Barbara Eden, an American actress born in Arizona in 1931, rose to prominence over the 1960s. It was in this period that she took on the role that would mark her career, the charismatic Genie in the TV series I Dream of Jeannie, aired between 1965 and 1970, making her name synonymous with light fantasy and humor for several generations around the world. In the early years of the 20th century, traveling meant adapting to whatever was at hand. In many villages, the solution came from pack animals, donkeys, mules, and at times goats. There are records of a man driving a mobile goat, proof of how, far from the cities, this animal served as practical, accessible transportation for short distances. In the heart of Rwanda, Amasunzu stands out as a traditional hairstyle of strong presence. It arises from carefully worked cuts that sculpt the head, and more than a style, marks collective moments. It is adopted especially by men and by unmarried women on occasions of social weight, such as weddings, baptisms, and funerals, in which the community celebrates, welcomes, and says goodbye. Portofino, 1977. At the edge of the sidewalk, a woman ties her shoelaces and pauses her step. Around her, painted facades and wind-tossed treetops set the scene. While boats arrive and voices cross the street, tourists slow down, locals move on. The simple gesture becomes a marker of time and place, as if the village breathed along with that knot. In the 1970s, Arizona newsstands displayed magazines that turned their gaze to the region's indigenous nations, narrating customs, crafts, and voices that crossed generations. In one issue, 2 indigenous women occupy the center of the scene. Their presence invites the reader to move through the pages and get to know respectfully the history unfolding there. Carol Cleveland, a British actress born in London on January 13, 1942, rose to prominence as a constant presence on a British TV comedy program. Throughout the 1960s and early 70s, her recurring appearances helped shape the era's humor and cemented her name with the public. Her greatest recognition comes from this period. In 18th century France, refinement took shape on canvases, facades, and interiors. Among the objects that express this spirit, a chair draws attention. Conceived to cradle the reader, it was designed to support body and book with comfort and discretion. In it, reading becomes ritual, a union of ergonomics, craftsmanship, and a love of knowledge. Built in 1883 in Montana, in the United States, the wooden railroad bridge became more than an engineering work. It turned into a strategic passage that propelled the railroad's westward march. By connecting tracks and shortening routes, it helped shape travel corridors, settlements, and the very idea of American expansion. A symbol of crossing, it marked the country's history. In the 1970s, payphones dominated squares and street corners. To talk to someone, you approached the device, inserted a coin or token, lifted the receiver, and dialed. The sound of the pulses guided the conversation that soon continued on the other end of the line. It was the meeting point for urgent news, quick messages, and everyday arrangements. Among the finds that changed archaeology, the sarcophagus from the tombs of Yuya and Thuya holds a central place. It came to light in 1905, when the Briton James Quibell, during excavations in the Luxor region of Egypt, identified the artifact. Since then, the discovery has served as a key to understanding rights and power on the ancient Nile, a find that holds the gaze of researchers and the curious. Jean Tierney, an American actress, left her mark on Hollywood cinema in the 1940s and 1950s, with roles that combined on-screen presence and versatility. In 1954, she continued to broaden her reach by starring in The Egyptian, an epic production that consolidated her image with the general public and kept her name among the most remembered faces of that period. Amid the dunes of Egypt's western desert, Wadi al-Hitan, the Valley of the Whales, revealed a rare find, the fossil of a whale skeleton more than 20 meters long. Dated to about 37 million years ago, the record illuminates the history of these marine giants and reinforces the region's role as a window onto the planet's ancient transformations. It was raining in London, 1963. A couple crosses the street with calm steps, sheltered by a broad umbrella. She comments on the evening's movie. He smiles, stretches out his arm, and avoids a puddle. Shop windows reflect the movement. The rain hurries no one. Between short laughs, they carry on without a fixed destination, as if the city were giving them a few extra minutes. In 1945, a photograph captures Keith Richards, still a baby, beside his mother, Doris. He had barely turned 1 and was already walking the neighborhood sidewalks with her, hands joined, gaze curious. The scene, simple and intimate, foreshadows without fanfare the future Rolling Stones musician, revealing an everyday instant that spans decades and brings us closer to the boy behind the icon. At the edge of a road in Oklahoma, a girl extends a bouquet to passers-by. The simple gesture opens a window onto the period. Makeshift stalls, hurried buyers, counted out money. Selling flowers was routine and a guarantee of income, a trade that supported families and marked the landscape of American highways, in the shadow of constant traffic.